All right, what's up? So I haven't done one of these in a while where I put together a bunch of pieces, but I thought that this play was a really good chance to show how all, or not all, a lot of this unusual whale stuff kind of interconnects, and then also show the cope tool a little bit, which I'm still learning, but kind of have, a decent grip on what I'm generally looking for. So let's piece this together. The one we're looking at is ZI, Zoom Info Technologies. So the first place you're going to go is to your alerts, right? We all sort through alerts. That was what originally started it all. So I'm going through alerts here. You might notice that you see ZI listed on here from Friday. Today's Sunday. This was on Friday at 9:37, right? So what always grabs my attention, this is from UOA 101, is I love to see close expiration far outside the money, right? It's somewhat self-explanatory, but that's kind of the thing that we're generally looking for because it shows that someone thinks something big might happen, could happen, or will happen. So the first thing that I'm looking at when I see this is the contract itself, right? So one way to do it is look there, and you can just get a little bit more information about it. But the shortcut that I like to take to get the info I'm looking for is this. I go to ZI. I'm going to go back down to where it was. Right here. So I'm going to go over into Flow, and I'm going to go over into my menu, and I'm going to look at the hot chains, right? So once I'm in the hot chains, because I've seen it in alerts, I know it's probably going to pop up there. So boom, ZI. So now I've got that ZI order. The one that we saw, it was 820,000 premium on the 45 call. Also noting that there's a 30 put for 715, $110,000. But this is why you always want to look when you're looking at hot chains, see the premium spent. So this was bullish. So this was actually sells of puts, right, that had the attention, which also gets our attention as well. So we've got the setup for what we're going to look at. The first thing I'm going to do is see on the alerts, did ZI get any more attention? That kind of might bolster a case for what this person's thinking. So I'm looking at recent stuff, right? And what do I see right under that 624 we saw? Good God. I see a 50 call. Sorry, man, I'm bored. This Dodger game's boring. I see a 50 call right when it was at 39 bucks. 26% difference, expiring 10/21. So is it as close as the other one? No. But it looks like since last May, someone else has thought that Zoom Info is really going to climb sometime this year, right? It's kind of weird how fast this year is going. October isn't even that far away right now. So now what I'm looking at is two alerts, both still active for the 45 call and the 50 call, with the 45 call expiring next week. When I look at these things, I'm thinking maybe it's two different people that know something. It could be nothing, but that's what I'm looking at. So you might be saying, oh shit, but Mill, that 50 call was bearish. We're going to get to that in a minute. All right. The first thing I'm going to look at when I go to my hot chains for looking at the specific alert that we saw is see what the activity was like. So we see right here, we had volume of almost 15,000 on open interest of 3,000, right? So very, very active contract. So the next thing we do is go show flow, because we want to get a sense of the actual orders. And so I'm going to go and set my results per page to 250. And I'm going to go to the time that all that activity was at. So we see it was at roughly 950, 951. You see a bunch of sells that started off at 950. And around 951, we start seeing that actual volume pull in that drew our attention. And you're going to see some sells in there too, but you're also going to see a lot of the buys, right? This is interesting, particularly here in 953. Because we see it all at 953 to 954, look at this. What can one assume? One can assume that this is likely the same buyer purchasing these orders, right? So this 600, 700, 800, 1,000, 12,000 you see here and there actually all adds up to one large order. So that gives us a little more confidence in what we're seeing. So the next thing we're going to do really quickly is we want to also investigate this 50 call, right? Because if it's bearish, then it doesn't even matter. It doesn't help bolster our argument. So what I'm going to do is go to the historical flow. The historical flow, I can go down here. I can just pop in that contract that I was looking at. So here we see that the contract was the 10/1/2022 50 call is what they were looking at, right? All right, so I'm going to cruise over, historical flow. 10/21 is what I'm going to select. And they were looking at the 50 call. So now I'm going to go back to the date that we saw that, right? That was 5/23. So that's the day in question from this alert, right? It's 5/23. I love pressing this little circle thing, dude. So it's 5/23. And we can see here, 25.95. And it held the vast majority of that volume that it had. So look, although this alert was listed as bearish, right? Oh, shit. So although this alert was, there we go. So although this alert was listed as bearish, right, we actually see when we look at it that volume held. So what are the reasons that alert could be listed as bearish or bullish when it's call buy, call sell? You also got to remember that the spread, the bid-ask spread, sometimes people are just trying to get low fills. So that's why you never really want to just take what you see on there as whether it's bearish or bullish, but you want to go look at the volume itself. You want to look at the bid-ask spread itself and see what they were doing. So we know that this held. So where are we at now? We've got two alerts. One of them is for the 50 call that we know that person has held. Why do we know that person has held it? Because if we go up, still got the same amount of volume. They haven't sold out of this position at all. This is still like an extremely, extremely bullish position that they're holding. They're just sitting tight on it. We also know that for this one in particular, we have this one buyer who's probably breaking up a lot of orders. What are we waiting for? We particularly want to wait for Monday. So on Monday, which I guess that's tomorrow, tomorrow we'll see how much of that volume to open interest held, right? If it doesn't hold, it's nothing burger. If it does hold, then we have what? Two different orders far outside the money for Zoom Info Technologies. And that is something of interest. So the other thing that I wanted to talk about a little bit was this COPE tool and using that in a couple different ways. The first way is on the intraday analyst page where you get like a 3-day aggregate, right? So it shows you over the course of 3 days what's happening. So you're probably like, what the fuck is this COPE thing? Basically, it's a measurement of bullish, bearish premium spent. I don't want you to think it is what it's not. It's not like a way to measure like divergence particularly or anything like that. What it does is show you large orders. So when we see this right here, this shows us that a large bullish order was placed, whether it was put sell, call buy, whatever it might have been. That took us way above the baseline 0 over the past 3 days, which was here. And then we see the sell dip right here, start the day on Friday. But then look, we see it climb back up with bullish orders. So now we've got a closing on Friday above the baseline of the previous day, which is above the baseline of the previous day, right? It's large orders coming through. The other way that you can look at this too is go into historical flow. And you can also see here on the 15th, after that dip, there's a large order that brought it up to this baseline 0, climbed a little bit, fell, then kept climbing. Right, so we're getting bullish signals from the alerts that we see, the volume being held, and the COPE that we're seeing here. And then, of course, we have our 50C guy down here. Last thing I want to look at is maybe some comparative put-call ratio. We could see here that it was incredibly high over the past like week and a half or so. You see that it goes, right, it was up in like 7s, 2s, went down to 0.44, 0.7. Now we're down to, it went to 0.04, and then we ended up at 0.19. So, big put-to-call ratio. Typically, a put-to-call ratio, you want it to be under 0.7 to be bullish, over 0.7 to be bearish. That is a really big oversimplification, but just know, essentially, the lower the better if you're bullish, the higher the better if you're bearish. And then the last thing I want to talk about, too, because I found so much success with this thing, is just looking at the daily flow breakdown of the call put premium. So here on the 24th on Friday, we see this huge spike in call premium while the put premium is declining. So that says to us that although it's kind of what you would call, quote, a dumb metric, right? It doesn't technically tell you if it's sold calls, sold puts, bought calls. When you see it diverge that much, that's a good piece of information. So putting all those things together with the unusual whales tool will make me say, okay, this is something I probably want to take a flyer on, assuming that the volume opens up the same tomorrow. And then lastly, just taking a quick look at the chart using TradingView. We see it actually does have a little bit of room to run regardless. So it's not even a bad technical play. We see that it's got some ground to cover here from 38 to about 40. Maybe go a little bit higher. So this is one that I might even play regardless if it can break that 38.20 level. So anyway, just to review, when you look at alerts, you want to investigate the alerts. You can do that by just going to hot chains, popping it in. It gives you the screen you're looking for. You can see the volume. You can see the open interest. You also want to take a look at the flow of it to make sure that you're seeing something right. A lot of times this might actually, so see where this little exclamation is? A lot of times there'll be spreads or connected to another order, and when that happens, you pretty much want nothing to do with it. Lastly, intraday analyst page where you can get a look at COPE, and historical flow where you can get a look at the put-call ratio, the 8-day aggregate COPE, and the call-put premium. All right, I'm going to buy some tomorrow, so fingers crossed.